I'm just going to say a couple words, then I'm going to turn it over to Nick. But as you mentioned, I'm Deb Barnett. I'm the executive director for Southern Illinois now. So we focus on the Southern Illinois region, 17 counties. Jefferson is the northernmost county, then all the way south to the east over to White County, to the west, Randolph County. And just to give you a little bit of background on how SI Now came about, you'll see the story in the magazines that we handed out as well. And this one came out in the fall. We have another one coming out this spring, so we'll have one twice a year. And this was really designed to be sort of Southern Illinois' collective story. There's a lot going on in our region, a lot of really great things happening in our region, and we're seeing groups just like yours happening in community after community where residents, citizens are just really passionate about their community and want to see it move forward. And it's really encouraging because we fully expected, as we kind of travel around, I mean, 17 counties is a big area. We fully expected that we would run into someone somewhere that would say, thanks, but no thanks, we're good, and we haven't. I mean, from the very smallest communities to the very largest communities, people have a vision. Everyone seems to be rowing in the same direction, or at least headed that direction. And so we're just really excited to see this group today and get to come share with you. As I mentioned, SI Now was started a couple of years ago, just really from our business community that came together and also had a passion and a vision for the region and really wanted to put not only their time, but their dollars behind it. So you'll see here in the magazine on page 9, you'll see our board of trustees. Many of these folks are also investors in this work, and just a really great group of folks. I'm going to turn it over to Nick to talk about our 3 priority areas that we have, and then I'll step back in for one of them.
Yeah, so we work on really 3 focuses, business, growth, and development. And that means helping to support the businesses that already exist in Southern Illinois, but also trying to attract new business. And when our board of directors kind of got together and the whole idea of SI Now came together, the idea is not for us to duplicate efforts that are ongoing across the region. We really want to partner and try to fill gaps or fill needs. So the business attraction was one of those gaps that really felt like needed to be filled. So that's what we spend a lot of our day-to-day doing. It's not necessarily so much of a business attraction from retail standpoint, but a lot more in industrial manufacturing and things like that, trying to create high-paying jobs here in the area. So we spend a lot of time day-to-day doing a lot of site selection type things, trying to identify sites. I see Shane back there from Egyptian. We've met with Shane in Egyptian talking about the utility standpoint, because that's a huge deal when you're talking about business attraction. Number 2 is we work on education and workforce. So obviously that's been kind of a hot topic here in the last year or so, is talking about workforce. So I'll let Deb talk a few more minutes about what we are doing and kind of what SI Now is doing to work to build up that workforce pipeline.
Yeah, so whenever we talk about attracting new business, one of the questions that we get is, but wait a minute, we can't even fill the jobs that we have now. How are we going to attract more business? And what we always say is that workforce trend is happening all across the country. There's a workforce shortage, but these projects, these companies that are looking for places to go, they are going to choose somewhere to go. And those folks are going to have the same workforce challenges that we have right here. So we just have to figure it out, basically. We do have a workforce and education task force that is comprised of folks from higher education, elementary and secondary education, but then also the business community to try to find solutions to these workforce challenges. We're seeing that a lot of folks, for whatever reason, are not in the workforce. So we're trying to figure out, if we have positions to be filled, how do we reach those folks and get them back into the workforce? One of our main priorities with our task force is really getting down into our high schools throughout the region to make sure they understand the opportunities that are available right here in their backyard, and that they don't have to leave the region in order to survive and do all the things and have a wonderful life and a family and be able to support their family. And you'd be surprised, there have been different high schools going into places like Eisen and Prismian Group and some of those companies, and those high school students go in there and they thought it was their grandfather's manufacturing plant, whatever that is in their head, right? And they realize this is a pretty high tech, like cool place to work. And there are lots of different opportunities there. So the more that we can expose folks, particularly our high school students, to those opportunities and partner with employers to do that, our hope is that we'll be able to retain more of those students here.
Do you guys work like through John A. With the high schools to where they could be bused into for health or, the nursing and so to speak? I've heard you have it. Would that also include manufacturing where they could actually be taking classes in high school and being taught things that's going to put them in the ice?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So Dr. Overstreet at John A. Logan is on our task force. Chancellor Lane at SIU is, and Dr. Taylor down at Shawnee Community College. I think all the community colleges are represented on it. But then again, we also have private business and we have our workforce partners. So for example, in this area, Mantricon is that partner. So when we see a need, they can help bridge that gap. They can provide funding and different programs to help meet those needs. In fact, those company tours were organized by Mantricon.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised. I know some of us are familiar with Mantricon, others are not. You'd be surprised at some of the employers in the area that, you talk to them, and that's not necessarily been their main focus, and you can really help connect them with those resources and let them know that they're not really here alone. That there is help out there, that there's folks that are willing, and organizations that are willing to help them. I'll go back just a second. I didn't really mention some of the business attraction piece. So we partner with an organization called Intersect Illinois. So there's a statewide organization that when businesses are looking to relocate or expand, maybe to the Midwest, maybe to Illinois, that's kind of the central focus part for the state. And then they send out RFIs looking for information on what the company might be looking for, the needs for the company. So when I say we spend a lot of our time, that's what it is. It's trying to find those needs. So it might be, hey, this company's looking for 100 acres with this, and this, all this utility information. Or they might be looking for an existing building. We see more and more of companies looking for existing buildings because speed to market and building something can be very slow right now, or getting the parts for it. So we work a lot with Intersect Illinois. Again, workforce education is our number 2 focus, and number 3 is really marketing. And marketing internally and also marketing externally. So the magazine, that's part of that plan, but we also do a lot of strategic marketing in a lot of national and even global publications, especially like Business Facilities Magazine, Site Selection Magazine, things like that. A lot of that just to tell people what we have here in Southern Illinois. And many of us that are maybe from here say, hey, there's nothing going on, but there is a lot going on. And there's a lot of, especially from a transportation and a centrally located area, we have a lot of assets. You're talking about 3 interstates, 24, 57, and 64. You're talking about a ton of rail infrastructure. All right. So you're talking 4 Class 1 railways that move through parts of Southern Illinois. Obviously, you've got the 2 big rivers, in addition to the Mississippi and Ohio River. Part of our area is in Randolph County, which is the Kaskaskia. And the Kaskaskia River, that little regional port up there, is one of the busiest in the country. All right. In addition to that, then we talk about our runway. So we like to call it our R4 advantage. It's our rails, runways, roads, and rivers. So we kind of really try to promote what we have here in the region. Again, some of that's internally, trying to tell our folks that we do have this and we should have a lot to be proud of, but then also telling that story outside of this region.
Yeah, and if I could just add briefly, and then we really want to open up to questions and learn more about what you all are doing. But if I could add briefly to this, before SI Now came about and this regional approach, Intersect Illinois that he mentioned, they are the central point of contact for the state for any business that's looking to come to the state of Illinois. So that could be relocating, it could be expanding, it could be reshoring if they've moved, out of the country and they're looking to come back. The pandemic certainly changed a lot of things there and wreaked havoc on supply chains. So folks are looking like, where are those central points in the country? How can we get our goods through rail or on the rivers? And as Nick said, when you look at our area, we are perfect for that. And I don't know that we've always recognized those assets that we have, those logistics and transportation assets, in addition to all of the natural resources and all of those things that everyone loves. But back to Intersect Illinois. So before SI Now and this regional approach, when these requests went out from the central point of contact for the state, they really went out to economic development offices throughout the state. Well, if you're in Johnston City doesn't have its own economic development office, right? Really, in this area, the only ones that have full-time economic developers are Marion, Mount Vernon, Randolph County has one, and the city of Carbondale has one. Some might have some of that work going on, but maybe not someone dedicated to that work. So before we took this regional approach, a lot of those communities were getting left behind and left out. And what we do when we receive these requests, and the beauty of this regional approach, is we very objectively look at the criteria, as Nick said. So if it's 100 acres, if it's 25 acres, whatever it is, or if it's a 30,000 square foot building, we very objectively look at the inventory throughout the entire region that we're aware of. Okay, so that's a key point too. We have to be aware of it. And if it's not on the market, but it could be for sale for the right price, like those are things that we need to be aware of so we can include it in the mix. But we objectively look through and work with that landowner, that community, whatever it might be, to say, here's a project. They're looking for something that your site is a good fit for. Would you like for us to go ahead and submit it? And because if you don't submit it and you don't throw the hat in the ring, it's not, they're never going to pick the hat up. So we are seeing a lot more interest in Southern Illinois since we started doing that, because we talked to a site selector a couple months ago. He's out in New York, and our call was scheduled for about 30 minutes, and 45 minutes into it, he said, I am so glad we had this call. He said, I don't know that Southern Illinois has ever come up in conversations with any of my colleagues. He said, when we think Illinois, we think Chicago. And so he's like, this is like a whole new discovered area for us. And it's such a unique time for this to be happening. And so our kind of tagline, the time is now, is so accurate. Like, the time is now. And we also say a win for one is a win for all of Southern Illinois. So regardless if that company lands in whatever community, the communities around it are going to benefit, because those workers, we're a commuter region, so those workers are still going to have access. And the next project may land in your community. So anything else there?
Any questions that you guys have?
Yeah.
Like where Johnston City has several acres on both sides of 57, it's never probably been open or approached. Are you able to approach, say, individuals with property laying flat there? Johnston City has several hundred acres land within just a little bit of 57.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you left out Interstate 70.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so really, we are the logistic capital, or should be,
Yeah.
in our area. And I just feel like that's not been broached. And we have some land that, if gotten, could be gotten at a much cheaper rate than, say, Marion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to know that it's available. I'm actually met with Alyssa a couple of weeks ago, and it's just
Out in the open available, but I don't understand.
Yeah.
To me, if it's for sale,
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, just even know exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean, whether it's out in the open available, or whether it's out in online for sale, or whether we just know that, again, for the right price. We've run across a lot of that. I mean, you can go through the real estate websites and find some of the stuff that's for sale, but we have run across a lot that, well, I'd be willing to sell, but I don't necessarily want to put it on the market. So even just knowing that is very valuable.
I don't know if you're aware, but up in Mount Vernon, they just landed a big project last year with Manor Polymers. And when that came through, they had identified one piece of property, but someone up in that economic development office literally got in his car. Well, first of all, they started with an aerial map, like going, because the company had to have rail, going up and down all the rail in Mount Vernon to see what may or may not be available, and started just calling folks and figuring that out. So it's doing exactly what you said. And we're only 2 people, so we can only do so much of that. But if you all are aware of things that you're like, hey, you might want to check into this, or I know so-and-so down the road that owns this piece of property.
so how we get a hold of you?
Yep.
It's right here in the magazine. Yeah. There's our contact information's there. We're easy to get a hold of. SouthernIllinoisNow.org is there too. So, yep, either way.
I can tell you two businesses right now that we know of that is getting ready to go up, which is the mobile home place out on the other side of the interstate.
Mm-hmm.
And then Martin Electric is getting ready to retire, which is just right down
Okay.
on 9th Street.
Mhm.
And that's a big building.
Okay. Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yep.
So if we get a list and put it together, does that mean it's somewhat of a confidential list that we get to you?
Can be, for
Yeah.
sure. Whatever you guys prefer.
Okay, so if we ask for, if certain like owners of property ask for it to stay confidential, that's not it.
Oh, yeah. No, not at all.
Absolutely.
Put together a list, email it off to you, and then if any of those match up, then.
Yep.
conversations start from there.
So Intersect has like a database that is public. I think I may have even sent that to you. They actually have a public database. We have properties that we also know that are available internally that again, just we don't put out publicly. But when we do receive these requests, we go kind of through that list. Okay, what's, could this piece of property meet?
And that's a good point, Alyssa, because everything that we do is confidential. I mean, it's really important to keep things confidential. Our board doesn't even know the specifics of projects that we're working on. They might know in general, maybe an industry or kind of what part of the region, but it's really, really important to us to keep those things confidential until they're ready to be made public. Yeah.
If an area needed a clover leaf in to help with logistics, are you able to work with the governor and make something like that happen if it would be needed to make it logistically?
If you had a company coming in and they needed that, or just kind of as a perspective, this could help attract.
Right, well, that company hopefully would tell you up front, that, hey, we could use this clover leaf, it cut X amount of time off our guys hitting interstate.
Yeah, I think that's where our partnership with Intersect Illinois comes in really handy. We certainly could work with DCEO and agencies statewide, but they have a meeting weekly with the governor's office. I mean, they are tasked with business attraction for the state, as is, the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. So to say, yes, we could get that done, I can't say that, but certainly those conversations could be had. Of course,
for sure.
yeah,
And connect you with the right people. Yeah.
absolutely.
And also, we have two airports, basically. That would be something for businesses coming in to look at too, not only cargo wise, but there are people coming in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, you've got rail right out here. BNSF is running through here. So yeah.
I play stocks a lot and I follow the U.S. economy a lot. Artificial intelligence is getting ready to hit like we've never seen. Are these schools and the training centers staying on top of this, or are they, if they don't, they're going to be training for kids for jobs that don't even exist?
Yeah, I think.
So the towns that are on top of that are the ones that's going to benefit.
Yeah, I think like Rend Lake, for example, Rend Lake College is building a new manufacturing academy in Mount Vernon. And again, going back to when I toured Eisen about a week ago, if you've ever walked through that plant, I mean, it's not manufacturing in the way of putting things together. I mean, it's watching robots move everywhere. I mean, you're right though. In manufacturing, it's very, very different today than what it used to be. Yeah, so there is a lot more into the advanced manufacturing, because that's one of my questions was, who fixes these robots when they go down? And I mean, that's a whole, that's a whole career path right there, for sure.
We've had to send our maintenance back to schools
Yeah.
for those robots.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. If we aren't careful, we'll be training kids.
Yep.
And they don't exist.
Yep.
In a lot of different fields.
Yeah, piggyback off of what Lyndall's saying, if Yuns can broach the schools, they would pay more attention to Yuns because of your contacts and things, I think, than they would, say, a room full of us. You know what I'm saying? And I just feel like that's a way you could open the door, say, for JC or somewhere. You had small schools, bring them together in one building, so to speak, a business incubator, if we had to where they could all share the cost. Even.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Good point.
Do you help towns put together packets, so when you get the, call it the RFI requests come in, that we can already have that put together. You guys already have that on Johnson City, or is it something that you put together as needed? Something we can put together jointly so that we knew our power and we knew our infrastructure and water and sewer and roadways, and traffic counts? Is that something? What does that look like?
Yeah, so a lot of times when we receive the requests, they are very quick turnaround times. So yes, the more knowledge we have going into that, the better. When I tell you, for example, when we identify property, that's one of the things, say, we have 100 acres or whatever, it's one of the things we go into, okay, what is the power like here? Where's the nearest sewer line? Where's the nearest gas line? All of that kind of stuff. What size sewer lines and gas lines, water lines, all that kind of thing. So, yes, the more knowledge we have, that definitely, in our spreadsheets and everything, that's what it looks like.
And you have some of that already, or you can help us put that together jointly?
We definitely help you guys put it together jointly, for sure.
Are we better off with a website?
So it's in electronic form typically when these are submitted. We keep addressing Intersect Illinois, but the state really has done a great job of putting that organization or that organization coming together so that they can really be effective in responding to businesses quickly. On their page, and this is a public page, you can just do Intersect Illinois. Is it .com, org?
Probably .org.
Org, just search Intersect Illinois. You'll find it. Anyway, there is a tab that says looking for a site, and you will see the database through the entire state. So you'll be able to pull up those sites, what information is already in there. The more information that's in there on a site, the better, because as Nick said, the turnaround time is really fast. But in addition to that, once that's submitted to the company that's inquiring, there are also other tabs like demographics, labor force data, traffic counts, Alyssa, I would have to check on. But there's a whole host of tabs and information. So we don't have to, on every request, go and pull that information out. It's automatically available for them.
So does Johnston City actually have that type information in there right now? If I went right straight to that site and I pulled it up, or could we sit down with you, because right now we have the mayor sitting in here, let's make a date, let's sit down and let's make it happen if it's possible, if he would.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I'd be open to the idea of sitting down one day if you can identify some sites beforehand, some, pieces of property beforehand, so we can kind of go through and say, okay, like this is the one we need to focus on, or this is the one we think we should focus on. I think that's probably the way to approach it.
Yeah, the labor force and the labor force data and all of that, that is pulled from publicly available databases. So that is in there for every community already. But if there are specific things related to Johnson City that we want to highlight and point out, then that's where maybe that standalone document or something that's always submitted with Johnston City sites would be really helpful.
People don't think about it, but Doug, the mayor, was bringing it up at one of our meetings, and basically 37 comes right through town. And it's amazing the amount of traffic that comes down. So we have 37 and 57 a rock throw away from each other.
Yeah.
We have the property setting over there. We're within 5 miles of about anywhere you want to go, and about 15 minutes to the casino once that lane opens up from Blairsville. Those are the type of things that we'd like to really.
Absolutely.
Well, there's also you mentioned the BN Railroad, but there's also a UP right through Milltown and the CN. They're all in, I actually know it's part of them out there. That's So, they're all doable.
Yeah.
And available because the rail people want traffic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
And there's also, as you mentioned, the rivers, but there's also different docks that are available. Some via rail to the dock, to the Mississippi River, to the Ohio River, to the Wabash River. There's all that stuff's available.
Yeah.
To be able to get to it. Isn't also another story where you're talking about somebody bringing a business in, they're going to expect to make an investment.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it really is. We have I said, I don't think we've taken advantage of some of our assets that we have from the transportation. I mean, geez,
Well, I mean, like the rail, most of these rail come there because of coal.
yeah, of course,
And now with coal going away in our area, that just means those rails are open.
yeah.
That means they're available for traffic,
Yeah.
because I'm sure they want to make money. They're paying the budget deal with them, they want to make money.
Yeah.
We also have high-speed internet
Yep.
in our town. We've got Futiva. I think we also have Clearway coming through town and everything. So, I mean, we are updating everything. Do you also include like the recreational in your areas and everything?
We do, to an extent. We don't try to duplicate what tourism is doing, because that's kind of like that's their bread and butter is the tourism bureau. We just hosted what we called an outdoor economy summit, though, kind of talking about especially some of the outdoor industry that we have, and talking about how some of the needs for maybe more businesses, more infrastructure, and things like that in some of our outdoor areas. So, yeah.
It does definitely speak to quality of life, though. There isn't a day that goes by that we don't run into someone who either grew up here, moved away, and then came back and realized what, they were missing this whole time, that maybe they took advantage or took for granted when they lived here before. I mean, I grew up here, I've lived here my whole life, and I can tell you that I take for granted a lot of things that, someone visiting sees as a vacation, right? For me, it's always been, this is where we live, right? But, yeah, I think that quality of life, not only the outdoors, but the lower cost of living in comparison to a lot of places. I always tell the story. My son lives in Colorado right now, and what we pay for our house at the Lake of Egypt, he pays for a studio apartment in Denver. Yeah. So, anyway, lots to be proud of here for sure. But I think you're right. I think a good next step is to really just kind of sit down and say, what are the assets that you have here? What do you want to see? Are there any particular industries you want to target because of where you are uniquely located or whatever that might be? And how can we really just go after that and make that happen? Certainly Greater Egypt serves this community as well, and they can help with grant funding. There's a lot of grant funding out there right now for what they call energy communities, and those are communities that have been hard hit by coal mine closures, power plant closures, those types of things. There's funding out there, so much so it's really kind of overwhelming, to be honest. But there are folks called navigators that can help identify, if you have a certain need in the community or you have a project you want to pursue, they can help navigate and find which opportunities might be a good fit for that. And then Greater Egypt can come alongside and help with that. I can't say they'll write the application for you, but certainly we can figure it out.
Yeah, that's why we have Shane Hermits back there. He's been trying to help us
Yeah,
with things like that.
absolutely. Shane's fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know you probably have, but do you go into an area and try to pull regionally what we would all, for our schools to step up to the plate? I mean, I still think if you have a knock on the doors of schools and you say, hey, that door is saying, we want to get into this, or the car manufacturing is not going the way they want it totally, but it's going to eventually go to hydrogen or something. If we look on into the future, not only the robots, are manufactured anymore, where you fix them and things of that nature. I still say, yes, when you knock on the door, we carry more weight with the schools. Or, we can all raise our hand at the meeting and say something, but at the same time, they don't always pay attention. I feel that we carry the weight in that to maybe change our schools to work totally and how you could open the doors that maybe we couldn't.
Sure. Yeah, I think our workforce partners also can help with that. Like, for example, when you were talking, I was thinking MantraCon does a workforce summit every fall. It's in October. And they bring together exactly what you just said, educators, secondary, post-secondary, and then also and the trades, and then also employers from the area. And it's different every year, but a lot of times they'll have the employers speaking on a panel to let the other folks know what their needs are, and then vice versa. But you're right, being able to inform those future jobs will be important. I think the other thing is when we're looking to attract a company, a lot of times people say, well, as I said earlier, wait a minute, we can't fill our jobs now, so how are we going to fill 200 more jobs? Well, the likelihood of that company needing those employees next week is unlikely. There's usually some ramp up time, whether they're building a building, renovating, whatever that might be, so that we can work directly with the high schools, the community colleges, the trades, and the workforce partners to make sure that those employees are prepared. It doesn't educate more broadly like what you're saying, but it is getting those skills in place.
The more tech savvy people are, the better, that's where the jobs are going to go.
Oh, yeah.
Bill Gates said in 10 years, 1/3 U.S. jobs are going to disappear. And it's going to be the people, technology people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where our skills, our area, all that, they've got to stay up.
Yeah, I agree.
I spent 40 years with UPS. Basically speaking, when it gets done, we just took a new building into the airport over at Louisville. 99% of that job force is going to be AI. So somebody's going to have to go out and fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, or set them up, change them around to the format we need to do something. And that's in transportation.
Yeah.
So it's starting to happen. But if they could, if you guys could bring the business to the school, that would be even better because a job fair, how many of these kids are actually going to come in and utilize what you have here? But if you bring, say, the executives in who can tell them, hey, we're going this way.
Yeah.
You know, and that might get some kids sitting in a classroom to say, hey, wait a minute, the light go off.
That's been a lot of going back to some of these tours that and Mantracon's really spearheaded that project. It's called the local works program, and it's grant funded. And yeah, they've actually been taking some of the schools across the area into different plants, manufacturing plants, and that's actually what a lot of it is. It's saying here's the opportunities. You know, here's the exactly. Here's the opportunities. Here's how you need to get here. You know, here's what you need to do education wise to get here. It was really encouraging, you know, Prismy and Ison, some of the management staff to say, hey, like, look, we started as temp workers here 20 years ago. And, you know, they put us through school to work and learn how to do this and this and this. You know, it was really encouraging to see. Yeah.
A lot of them will send them to school if people start right now.
Yeah.
When these industries come and approach you or approach Intersect, are they also looking for local investors or relationships with lenders, or is it a mix? Do they have all that in place most of the time? What does that look like on the
Yeah. No, that's a good question. It depends. So some of the larger companies already have that in place. They have their investment figured out how they're going to do that. Some of the smaller ones, or even medium-sized ones, I would say, some are looking for investors. Some are looking for local financing, and we have, at least from what we've seen, and even folks on our board have talked about how much our local lenders work together so they can partner on different projects and that sort of thing and kind of increase that lending capacity. So, but yes, a little bit of everything depending on the project. Is there anything you wanted to add as far as a resource for that or anything?
I mean, you already have a network with all we have this here tonight, but do you already have relationships and communication lines open with those people that deal with the out-of-state investors, or I guess not the out-of-state investors coming in?
I would say some. I could say we always, whether it's lenders or other resources, we are learning of new resources every single day, it seems. So if you know of something, if we already know about it, we'd rather know twice than not at all. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Are they concerned about their fire service or even their service within that country? And does that kind of change different things with them coming or not coming?
We haven't necessarily seen that as a big factor. However, certainly that's important for any community. Do you want to?
No, and I would say we haven't really seen too many requests saying, hey, asking about fire police service in particular. There are sometimes requests asking for sprinkler systems, some of the fire suppression systems and things like that, especially in existing buildings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So our city would have to invest in the water supply, sewer, electrical.
It's not so much necessarily the city that needs to invest in that. Sometimes it's the utility. I mean, yes, sometimes if it's city water, knowing the capacity, knowing what's there, knowing what the infrastructure, obviously that is city. But when you're talking about electric and things like that, that's not necessarily so much city related. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just understanding the capacity, and if it is less than what the company is looking for, what it would take to get to what the company is looking for. We have a project right now where we threw out some costs on something and thought that's going to be a deal breaker, and the company said not a big deal. And then there are other companies that said you're going to have to find some incentives or resources to help us out with that. And I think that's where, our utilities, Greater Egypt, those kinds of folks can look into some infrastructure funding. Yeah.
Most of the things that you say, like an Iceland, all they need to know is they're already planning on it.
Yeah.
They're not expecting the city or the county even to put up the money. They just want to make sure they can get it.
Yeah.
Power,
Right.
and Shane, you can probably speak on this more than I can, but power has been a big, there's just, the requests we're getting right now are for a tremendous amount of power. It seems like every single one, you're just like, wow, okay, that's a lot of power. So, I mean,
yeah. That would be an understatement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not an expert at electric, but I see the number and I'm like, wow, that's in it their way.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. And some of the needs can be met and some just can't.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, and we know that too.
Yeah.
So, but it does help us even if we identify a property up until that point that, hey, like this meets the criteria, but even knowing that and knowing what the capacity is, it helps us down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
And Alyssa, I know I've mentioned Intersect Illinois a lot. They are one way that we get referrals. We also get direct referrals to us. We're getting more of those now that folks are really understanding what SI Now is and what our purpose is. But then we're also, as Nick mentioned earlier, doing a lot of targeted marketing. So right now, we've been doing some testing on some marketing and seeing those industries that are sort of raising their hand, and it's piqued their interest. And so we could really hone in on those and do some really direct marketing to them.
Example.
Well, most of them are transportation and logistics,
Yeah, a lot of them
trucking,
are.
yeah,
Yeah.
things like that.
And it might be rail, a lot of trucking transportation, some of it's manufacturing trucking equipment, different things like that. A lot of the targeted marketing we're doing right now is more in LinkedIn and trying to kind of go after that. And I'll tell you, in LinkedIn, you talk about AI, what you can actually do from a targeted marketing. Okay, like I want to do this sector, these people that have this title in the company, but then also I want to identify companies that are growing by this percentage or more. It's pretty crazy, actually.
And scary.
When you really get into it, it's pretty crazy, yeah.
I've noticed it since the pandemic a lot, and it's not a lot, it's not the point, sometimes it's not, we don't have people available, is they don't want to work.
Yeah.
Believe me, the turnover rate through ISIN has been tremendous in the last 2 years alone.
I think it is improving a little bit.
It's not as bad as it used to be.
Yeah. I was talking to several employers just in the last few weeks, and that was one of my big questions. They said in the last 6 months it has improved. I don't think that it's a very complex situation. Again, we're not the only ones dealing with it. I don't think it's necessarily going to get better. So again, we have to be able to find some solutions.
Most of the work at ISIN is not hard.
Yeah.
Just it's some of it's long hours.
Mm-hmm.
You get somebody mad and you go home and it makes other people have to work harder because they've got a person missing. And they're trying to fill that position, and that's what they see a lot of the times, and which makes it look bad.
Yeah.
It's not really a bad place to work. It's good money. And if you can get somebody past the point of, just give it time. Let it, try it.
Yeah.
That's our biggest issue. They'll work a day or two and then, oh, I don't want to do this. And they'll walk out and leave.
Yeah.
Not come back.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult. It really is.
Are any of these companies, when they come in, are they looking for large solar farms or anything like that? Can they buy tax credits and are they looking for that much?
We're seeing a lot of companies that are coming in. They're looking for ways sometimes to offset their electric bills, or they're looking for ways that they can get some state incentives. The state offers some pretty big incentives, especially if they're in that industry, if they're producing something that kind of falls in there. So we are seeing more companies that are, I mean, Manor Polymers is an example in Mount Vernon, Prismian and DuQuoin, adding solar fields to offset some of that. Yeah. And some of that, again, is to offset their electric bills. Some of it is also to receive some state incentives. Yeah.
Thank you for your time for me tonight.
Oh,
Thank you.
guys. We all really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we'll
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
We'll figure some dates out and see
Mhm.
together for you guys.
Yeah, and you've got my phone number, my email, everything. So, like, if you have any questions leading up to that, don't hesitate. Seriously, don't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.